With the MCU in decline, and it is, and continuing to double down, triple down, quadruple down on foolish narratives that nobody wants, with characters already proven to be failures because they tried it in the comic books and it didn't work. All eyes naturally turn to that other superhero universe, DC, which has been a complicated soap opera within its production, more so than any of its stories. And it's just an odd thing about it. And no matter which hands, and there's been several actually, get a hold of it, there's always this sort of, you're kind of stuck. You can't quite just start over. Even though there were several times when he thought, yeah, just scrap it and start over. The only time there was a start over was after the Superman Returns failed. And so they kind of rested for a while and came back with Henry Cavill. But when the pursuit of the shared universe thing, you had some hits alongside the flops. And so that's where they are. And that continues to be the case. And so even in the current era, with Zaslav having taken over, he's got to deal with leftover films from the previous regime. And with the promise to make them better, as he stated. And so that would obviously have to be reshoots. So the course they were going has been abandoned, and reshoots are done to correct the course for where they're going in the future. And right up to the last minute, just the basic, obvious idea of getting Superman back with Henry Cavill, which the audience wants, was right up to the 11th hour to do that. It was just insane that it was like that, but that's, so there it is. Black Adam, having been banned in China, probably won't turn that great of a profit, and that's unfortunate. It's a fun film. It's not great. Dwayne Johnson, he's a popular name, certainly was popular in China, and probably would have made the difference if they'd allowed it. But I don't know how big of a draw that is, but also it's the hindrance to it is Black Adam's just a character that the average moviegoer doesn't know, and so it had an uphill battle with all of that. But I do think the Henry Cavill cameo gave it quite the boost, and it's the right direction to move towards Superman and have him be their foundational character for their shared universe going forward. So, of course, James Gunn's been at least on the creative end, the big boss for the next 4 years, provided unless they flop terrible, it'll have to be someone else. But he's in charge. So he responded to fandom on Twitter and acknowledged some of the demands out there, even naming release the air cut, which just do it already. I don't see it could still just be an HBO Max thing. But the air cut was always, but the difference between the air cut and the Snyder cut was that the air cut was more complete. That probably it would be much easier to release it. So perhaps that'll happen. Air cut would be interesting to see. It's only going to be a curiosity. I don't think it would be this massive thing any more than Snyder cut. Snyder cut probably would have, when you get to compare the two, probably did more. I don't know. Because the sad thing about it is that their initial approach to it was much better than what they eventually went with, which was more of the connective tissue between the narratives they were setting up, with the mother boxes being involved. Steppenwolf was supposed to at least make a cameo in it, stuff like that. But that's not going to be in the air cut. They changed all that. So there's more of the Joker being involved in it and that sort of thing. Yeah, okay. But just what a missed opportunity, But so just out of curiosity, sure, I'd love to see what the original cut was. And before all this happened, Gunn was asked when he became the director for the sequel. And he said, well, yeah, I think they should release it. Just basically asking him. So maybe there's actually a shot for that. He also mentioned Save Legends of Tomorrow. I didn't even know that was a thing. I doubt that would happen. Maybe they would give the green light to some send-off TV movie or something. I don't know. That was a show that was sort of interesting. It had its moments, but it fizzled into stupidity, in my opinion. It's too bad. They had, some elements to it that was okay. But the whole CW thing is over. The only thing that might possibly survive is Superman and Lois in some form or fashion, but probably get moved to HBO Max. If that. I don't know. It's the best out there, but it's probably just too little too late. So there you are with that, and have to clean up the mistakes of the past and all that sort of stuff. And it'll be probably 2 years from now to see any real fruition from this new regime, because right now they're having to fix up the leftovers and whatever the new films could possibly be. Hopefully soon a Superman film. We just don't know yet. Don't know who would direct it or anything. Would Gunn himself do it? There's all kind of names being tossed around, even bringing Snyder back and all that. Just don't know. Really don't. But it was good of Gunn to acknowledge that. It never saw anything like this from the previous regime and all that. And so, is there hope that he would restore? I don't think so in totality. Would things get acknowledged or whatnot and that sort of thing? Fine. But for the most part, the cast has remained the same. So there is that going. But his conclusion on the statement was, but all our initial focus is on the story going forward, hammering out the new DCU, which I did as a DCU, so it's like, the DC Cinematic Universe, so that would be DCCU. What is this? No, it's Detective Comics Universe. Okay, so maybe that's what's that? Because that's what DC stands for, this Detective Cinematic Universe. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't just go and name their company Action Comics, because that was the first Superman comic. Detective Comics was an older book, but it didn't have Batman yet. But I don't know, maybe someone already had it and they couldn't. I don't know. So then they would be the ACU. It doesn't matter. So he says we're the new DCU and telling the biggest story ever told across multiple films, television shows, and animated projects. Well, what does that mean? So, Crisis on Infinite Earths, which the CW did their cheap, terrible version of. All right. But they did it, and they acknowledged past, DC films and stuff and TV shows and all that, and even had Ezra Miller make a cameo with Grant Gustin. So something similar to that, but over this ambitious attempt to have this connected narrative that they would do with multiple films, television shows, and animated projects. Right now, the emphasis is on theatrical releases. Should those prove profitable, there'll be more for elsewhere. And so that would include, I'm assuming, HBO Max series. Now, of course, Peacemaker Season 2 is a go. Apparently, the films that are spinoffs of the Batman, well, but that's separate. Well, is it? When they embrace multiverse, there's probably going to be some amount of acknowledgement between the two. Whether they would actually have Robert Pattinson meet Henry Cavill and stuff like that, I don't know. But in a Crisis on Infinite Earths type thing, that could be the case. And then, of course, animated projects. But the idea that they would be all canon within themselves is an interesting and ambitious thing, and not easy to do because you step on other people's toes and all that sort of thing. But to get the overall aspect of it to fit as close as they possibly can to what a comic book universe is. So by the time DC got to the Crisis on Infinite Earths, you had decades of stories and characters to be respected and to have their moment. In a thing like that, this would have to be established, but it hasn't been established other than there were previous films. There's Michael Keaton and there's the Christopher Reeve Superman and so on and so forth. There's stuff like that they could do, but also to build on that within their other stories, while at the same time maintaining those stories being their own thing. You know? So it could be something as simple as some story that involves some sort of crime, and the hero solves it, but at the end there's some weird thing, and I wonder what that's about, and it's an indication of a multiverse, and that sort of thing is how they could probably do that. And so it's looking likely that could be what he's referring to, that the 10-year plan is to get to a Crisis on Infinite Earths with in the theatrical version of it, connected to, you know, spin-off TV shows and animated things. And well, that would be great if they could pull it off, you know. But that appears to be the end goal, similar to what Marvel did with Infinity War. So once they get there, what they do after that is that's the opportunity that you give a good send-off to the world you created for its fans, and then you reboot. You know, so that means you know, Henry Cavill hangs up the cape, but you got a lot of Henry Cavill Superman by then, hopefully all good, and then new young actor takes the place of it. Then they move to a different version of it, or what have you, to continue on the brand, provided there's still desire for it and all that. But that's how that could work. They kind of failed. They kind of stumbled in the comic books doing that, but well, what are you going to do? So that's what one can draw and speculate on what James Gunn may or may not be talking about there. Obviously, there's some direction that they're hammering out. Meanwhile, Jason Momoa went out and hinted something. He's all excited about it. He can't say anything, because if he does, they'll have to kill him. But so I say, what is it? Aquaman related? Some suggesting maybe he gets to direct the third film because James Wan won't be doing it. Well, maybe, I don't know. But others think it means that he got word that Zack Snyder will be coming back. That there will be a Justice League 2, and it'll be Zack Snyder doing it. Maybe, I don't know. There's still talk of even Machete from The Flash doing Justice League 2, because The Flash, as of now, with all the still a leftover movie, but it's the one that consistently apparently test screens very well, whereas the others, not so much. So that might have earned him. So, and depending on how it performs, that could earn him a high place within DC. And so maybe he would direct Justice League, or maybe Superman. You know, you just don't know. But another interesting thing about it is, what if it's Lobo? Which is all said, and tons of people think, because it's so blatantly obvious that Jason Momoa would be excellent as Lobo. And with James Gunn there, and one of the things I referred to for what Lobo could be is like a Deadpool meets Guardians of the Galaxy film. That's how that could work. That over-the-top type stuff. Cross him over with Superman and all that. I don't mean by Deadpool that he has to break the fourth wall. I would rather they didn't do that. But that kind of crazy stuff, you know. And Momoa is just born to play the role. Of course, he's playing Aquaman. So what do you do? And some say, well, you know, multiverse and stuff. You don't need multiverse. He's just going to play a dual role. For that matter, I don't see any reason why Mark Strong can't come back as Sinestro. Sure, the Green Lantern movie flopped, but he was good as Sinestro. And under all that makeup, he's a totally different guy, even though he's playing Dr. Savannah for the Shazam films. So, why not? You know? And especially in this case, Momoa would probably have a whole other franchise thing after he's done with Aquaman. Doing Lobo, biker in space movies. So, the odds are that might be a good guess on what it is that he's all excited about. So I don't know. He says he praises Maestro. People think that means Zack Snyder. Does that Zack Snyder will direct the Lobo movie? And James Gunn writes it. Reunites them, the Dawn of the Dead remake team. Maybe so. Don't know, but odds are it's a pretty good guess, and maybe that'll happen. Finally, there is this rumor that I'm somewhat dubious on. I mean, not in total, because this sort of thing happens, that James Gunn and Dwayne Johnson are not getting along, that their visions are at odds. Of course, Dwayne Johnson has talked about Black Adam taking on the Suicide Squad, taking on the Justice League, and as if his character would become the centerpiece for whatever story going forward. I could understand where that might be a problem, but not in total. The idea that he's a significant character, that would be fine. The other rumor is that he doesn't like the Shazam characters or the story or anything. That seems a little odd. It was his production company that produced the film. But I think he was big on he wanted his own film. He didn't want to be, which I still think it could have worked if they just had cameos of him and just describing what happened and that sort of thing. But I don't know, he didn't want to do it. And so you get what you got. But ultimately, this business of him taking on Superman, fine, but he needs to cross over. And he said, yeah, there's going to be crossovers with Black Adam and Shazam. And of course, I mean, it's the same story. He's a part of that world more so than the rest. So I think that would happen. But as far as, oh boy, there's already trouble in paradise and everything, his position in it, for what he would want, could be diminished because Black Adam didn't quite deliver. Had it been, if it shot to $1 billion or something, everything, whoa, I didn't see that coming and all that. Well, he'd be in a much different position. But as far as the superhero stories, the ultimate villain is always going to come back to Darkseid. And for a Black Adam to be a part of that, fine, but that he's the Thanos of the DCU and all that, I don't really see that. There's stories you can use, and certainly him taking on superhero teams and a Suicide Squad team movie would that's feasible and could work, but maybe there's headbutting there between that James Gunn has another idea for what Suicide Squad would do next and that sort of thing. But that being said, it somewhat taken out of his hands in that the Black Adam movie already establishes he's caught the attention of Amanda Waller and that sort of thing. So they can hash something out, but as it is as big a mess or a problem as been insinuated, at this point I don't see anything that says so. But there it is. The biggest drama is the internal guessing game of what goes on in trying to make these things more so than the stories themselves, and that needs to change. I mean, it's always going to be fascinating and stuff, but they need some super duper pooper scooper hits. Primarily, they need a really good Superman film, and if they can achieve that, then the sky's the limit. So best of luck to them. I, of course, am rooting for them to be successful. That doesn't mean they will. There will be some stumbles along the way. There always are. But there's also the threat of the ticking clock that the superhero film genre has outlived its welcome. And that could also hang in there no matter what you do. You can have some bright spots here and there, but the appetite for it is no longer there, and that could very well be, and it could just be too late. But hopefully not, and we'll see what they do.